Welcome back to the Investing Talk podcast. We are diving into a company today that is causing a lot of debate in the renewable energy sector.
Yeah.
Altus Power, trading under the ticker symbol AMPS.
Yep.
They're kind of presenting investors with a bit of a puzzle right now.
Yeah.
Is it a buy, is it a hold, or should we fold on this one?
It's a fascinating one, right?
Yeah.
You have Altus Power, and they are operating in the solar energy space.
Right.
A sector that has huge long-term potential. We all know that.
Absolutely.
But when you look at the company itself, there are some pretty significant challenges that they're facing.
Yeah, so it's almost like a tug of war between this bright future
Right.
and then these kind of immediate risks that we're seeing.
Exactly.
So maybe let's start with the good news first.
Sure.
Analysts seem to be cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
They're giving it a moderate buy rating right now.
That's right. And they're giving it an average price target of $5.21. And that represents nearly a 40% potential upside from where it's currently trading at $3.73 as of January 27th of 2025.
So that kind of return is certainly catching people's attention.
It is. Yeah, it's hard not to notice that kind of potential upside.
Right, especially when you consider the projected growth of the entire renewable energy sector.
Yeah.
Analysts are predicting that Altus Power's revenue could grow by over 16%
Wow.
year over year
Yeah.
in 2025.
That's significant.
Yeah, plus on top of that, they just announced a new 1.7 megawatt solar project
Oh, wow.
in Northern California.
That's pretty cool.
So that's a concrete sign that they're continuing to expand.
It is, and it's worth
Yeah.
digging a little deeper into that specific project.
Okay.
Northern California is a really great location for solar.
Makes sense?
And for them to secure a project of that size means that they're really trying to establish themselves
Oh,
at
yeah.
a very, very competitive market.
Okay, so with all of this good news,
Oh, boy.
why are we even questioning this stock?
What's the hesitation? Despite all those positive projections, the stock has been in a sustained downtrend since February of 2021.
Wow.
And some forecasts even predict that it could go even lower, a one-year price target of $3.71.
Wow.
And a 5-year price target of $2.82.
Yeah, those numbers don't exactly inspire confidence.
No, they don't.
So how can we reconcile those projections with the revenue growth?
Yeah.
This expansion that we're seeing?
Well, that's where the puzzle gets really complex.
Yeah.
Despite the revenue increase, analysts are anticipating negative earnings per share,
Oh,
or EPS, for 2025.
okay.
And this suggests that they might have some issues when it comes to profitability.
So they're making money, but maybe they're spending more than they're making.
Exactly. They might be generating revenue,
Right.
but their expenses could be growing at a much faster pace,
Got it.
which is obviously a concern for investors.
Yeah. Okay, so we have these conflicting signals.
Yep.
Analysts are leaning towards a buy,
Uh-huh.
but the stock price is trending down, and we have these profitability concerns.
Exactly. And on top of all of that, the recent news adds another layer of intrigue.
Oh, really? What happened?
On January 24th, Altus Power shares rose by 3.5%, hitting $3.43.
Okay.
Now, interestingly enough, this was the same day that Citigroup lowered their price target,
Interesting.
but maintained their buy rating on the stock.
Okay.
However, JP Morgan downgraded the stock to underweight.
Wait, hold on. What does underweight even mean?
Well, essentially, it means that JP Morgan believes that Altus Power stock is going to perform worse than the overall market.
Got it.
They're essentially advising investors to reduce their holdings,
Okay.
which sends a negative signal to the market.
No kidding.
So you have Citigroup saying it's still a buy, even though they lowered their price target.
Right.
And then you have JP Morgan saying, get out while you can.
Right.
No wonder investors are a little bit confused.
Yeah, I'd be confused too.
And all of that uncertainty is reflected in the stock's volatility.
Yeah.
By January 27th, it had already dipped back down to 373.
Wow.
So clearly, investors are having a tough time figuring out what Altus Power's true potential really is.
It's anyone's guess at this point.
It really is. And this is where I think a deep dive into their financials
Yeah. Let's get into the numbers.
becomes crucial.
What are the key financial indicators telling us?
Well, one thing that immediately jumps out is their debt-to-equity ratio,
Okay.
which is currently sitting at 2.10.
Okay.
That's pretty high.
Okay.
And it suggests that they're relying heavily on borrowed money
Mhm.
to finance their operations.
So they have a lot of debt,
They do.
Okay.
And that raises concerns about their long-term financial stability.
especially if interest rates go up.
Exactly. High debt can be a real burden for any company, especially in a volatile market.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so high debt What else should we be looking at?
Their liquidity ratio is also a bit of a concern. It's currently at a weak 0.60.
What does that even mean?
So the liquidity ratio basically measures a company's ability to meet its short-term obligations.
Okay.
And a ratio below 1, like we're seeing here with Altus Power, suggests that they might have some difficulty covering their immediate expenses.
So not only do they have a lot of debt, but they might struggle to make their payments.
Potentially, yeah.
It sounds like investors are right to be a little cautious here.
And to add to those concerns,
Yep.
we're seeing some weakening momentum as well.
What does that mean?
The average daily trading volume has dropped to around 714,593
Okay.
on January 27th.
Right.
And that's compared to a usual average of about 1.1 million.
So less people are trading the stock.
Yeah, it seems like investor interest is waning.
Okay, this all is kind of painting a concerning picture.
Yeah.
But I thought that the current recommendation was a hold.
Right.
Why is hold the prevailing recommendation?
Well, it's not a buy because of all those financial uncertainties we've just talked about.
Right.
But it's not a sell either because the company does operate in a booming sector
Yeah.
with a potentially bright future.
Right.
So the hold recommendation is acknowledging those mixed signals.
Got it.
It's saying, let's wait and see how things play out.
So are there any indicators that could sway the recommendation one way or the other?
Absolutely. And that's where technical analysis comes in.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about the moving averages.
Right. So remember how we talked about the 50-day moving average?
Yeah.
The 200-day moving average?
Yep.
Well, the short-term outlook, based on that 50-day moving average,
Okay.
is looking a bit bearish right now
How so?
because the current stock price is below that average.
Okay.
However, the longer-term outlook, based on the 200-day moving average,
No.
is more neutral
Okay.
because the price is currently above that line.
So short-term bearish, long-term neutral.
Exactly.
So what should listeners take away from that?
I think the key takeaway is that the stock is sending very mixed signals,
Okay.
which is consistent with everything else we've discussed about Altus Power.
Yeah.
It's a company with a lot of potential, but also a lot of risk.
Right. And let's not forget about how volatile the stock has been.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we're talking a 52-week low of $2.71
Oh.
and a 52-week high of $7.28.
It's a huge swing.
Yeah, that's a significant swing for any stock.
It really is.
It really highlights the uncertainty surrounding Altus Power right now.
Investors are basically caught between this potential for growth
Right.
in a booming sector
Right.
and the very real financial risks that the company faces.
So it's a classic risk-reward scenario.
Exactly.
So what does all this mean for listeners who might be considering Altus Power for their portfolio?
That's the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
and it's one that we will definitely delve into further
Right.
after a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Investing Talk podcast. We're continuing our look at Altus Power, and before the break, we were discussing the hold recommendation for AMPS
Right.
and what that means for people thinking about investing in it.
Yeah, it's not a full-on endorsement,
Right.
but it's also not a stay-away kind of signal.
Right. It's like,
It's kind of like a wait-and-see approach right now.
yeah, exactly. And there's another thing, too, that adds another layer here.
Okay.
This whole potential for mergers and acquisitions
Oh, yeah.
in the renewable energy space.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always interesting because that can really change the game.
Absolutely. And, there have been some rumors swirling
Oh, really?
that Altus Power itself could be an acquisition target.
Interesting.
Back in December of 24, whispers started circulating that TPG, a major private equity firm, might be taking a look at them.
Oh, wow.
So nothing concrete has come out just yet,
Okay.
but it's definitely something that investors should keep an eye on.
Okay, so even with all of these financial questions that we've been talking about,
Right.
a big player like TPG might still be interested.
Potentially. Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that
Yeah.
even though Altus Power has these financial challenges,
Mm-hmm.
they do have a strong portfolio of existing solar assets.
That's true. They've got projects all over the place.
Right. And they've been, steadily expanding.
Right.
And, those projects that we mentioned earlier, like
Yeah.
that 1.7 megawatt project in Northern California,
Right.
those could be really appealing
Yeah.
to a firm like TPG.
So TPG is looking at this and saying, well, maybe they can step in and kind of streamline things
Exactly.
and maybe boost their profitability.
Right. And, private equity firms like TPG,
Right.
they're known for they're pretty good at restructuring companies.
They come in, they slash and burn and try to make things more efficient.
Exactly. And, they might see Altus Power as a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
A company that has a lot of potential.
With the right guidance.
Exactly. Just needs a little bit of polishing.
And it's not just about the internal improvements.
Yeah.
I mean, the renewable energy sector as a whole is doing very well.
It's a hot market.
So, it would make sense for a company like TPG to want to be involved in that.
Exactly. And for them, acquiring a company like Altus Power,
Right.
it could be a way for them to quickly expand their presence in this growing market.
Yeah. It's like that old saying, right?
What's that?
A rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
So they're trying to position themselves for the future.
They're thinking long term, for sure.
Yeah. Where renewable energy is really playing a major role.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're playing chess.
They are.
And everyone else is playing checkers.
And this potential acquisition,
right,
it really adds another layer of complexity to that hold recommendation that we were talking about.
It does.
Because if TTG or another company does decide to make a move, it could really push that stock price up.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if those talks fizzle out, the stock could drop.
So even more reason why investors need to really stay on top of things.
Absolutely. It's all about due diligence, right?
Right. And speaking of due diligence,
we
need to talk about risk tolerance.
Right.
Not every investment is right for every person.
No.
And people have different levels of risk that they're comfortable with.
Absolutely.
So where does Altus Power fall on that spectrum?
Well, I think based on what we've talked about today, the stock's volatility, the financial concerns, the uncertainty, it's safe to say that Altus Power is a pretty high-risk investment.
So this is not for your grandma who's got her, retirement savings.
Exactly. Not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
This is more for investors who are okay with some ups and downs and are willing to accept the possibility of some losses.
Yeah. In exchange for hopefully higher gains down the road. It's more like a roller coaster than a, nice walk in the park.
A great analogy.
And, it's important to remember diversification.
Absolutely.
You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Especially not a potentially wobbly one like Altus Power.
Right.
You really want to make sure that your portfolio is well balanced with a mix of different investments.
Investing 101.
Exactly.
Diversify.
Yeah.
Diversify.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But I think before we wrap things up on Altus Power, I think it's important to step back and look at the big picture here.
Absolutely. There's a lot more to this than just numbers and charts and graphs.
Yeah. What's the big picture takeaway here?
Well, as investors, we have the ability to put our money into companies that we believe in.
Right.
And with Altus Power, we're talking about a company that's working in a sector that's incredibly important for the planet.
Yeah, renewable energy is essential.
Exactly. If we're serious about tackling climate change, reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, and creating a better future.
And Altus Power, even though it's got its challenges, it is playing a role in that.
It is, and I think that's something to consider.
Yeah.
When you're making an investment decision.
It's not just about profits.
Right.
It's about
valuing
difference.
Aligning your portfolio with what you believe in.
So trying to find that sweet spot between making money and making a difference.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think we've really, unpacked this whole Altus Power situation.
I think so. We've looked at the financials, the risks, the potential rewards, even the, the potential for an acquisition.
So what's the verdict? Hold or fold? So after all of that, where do we land with this one?
It's a tough call, right?
Yeah.
We've heard some really good arguments, on both sides of this. They have a strong presence in a sector that's really growing rapidly.
Right.
They've got a solid portfolio of projects. And the potential is there for them to grow their revenue.
Yeah. And there's always that chance that someone's going to come in and acquire them.
Exactly. That could really change the game.
But we can't forget about all those financial red flags.
Yeah. The debt is a big concern.
Huge.
The liquidity issues and those negative earnings forecasts, those are things that, keep me up at night.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
And the volatility of the stock is something that investors really need to consider.
Yeah. It's a wild ride.
It is.
So drum roll, please. What's the final verdict?
Okay, so for now,
yeah,
we are sticking with that hold recommendation.
Okay.
For Altus Power.
I think that's a good call.
It's just too early to say definitively whether this is a buy or a sell.
Yeah, too many things up in the air.
Exactly. We need more information. We need more clarity
Yep.
before we can really confidently tell people to buy or sell this stock.
So for those listeners out there who are thinking about Altus Power, maybe give us some parting advice.
Sure. So first of all, do your homework. Don't just, base your decision on what you've heard here today.
Right.
Go out there, read those financial statements,
Dig in.
get to know the management team, look at their growth strategy, read the analyst reports,
Yep.
talk to other investors.
Get as much information as you can.
Exactly. And the second piece of advice is just stay informed.
Yeah,
This is a company that things are changing all the time.
absolutely.
So keep up with the earnings reports, any news that might come out about acquisitions,
Right.
and of course, just the overall performance of the renewable energy sector.
And remember, folks, investing is a marathon, not a sprint.
Well said.
Take your time, do your research,
Yeah.
and make sure you're making decisions that you feel comfortable with.
And that align with your goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, as always, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners.
Yeah. What do you think about Altus Power?
Are you bullish or bearish?
Have you invested in any renewable energy companies?
Let us know down in the comments.
We love hearing from you.
And that is it for today's episode of the Investing Talk podcast.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
And share this episode with your friends.
Until next time, happy
bye.
investing.